Rick, we said earlier on about Scotty Scheffler using obviously a Titleist golf ball and wedges as opposed to a tailor-made golf ball and wedges. One thing we have seen some images of now, and you'll be seeing in much more depth next week, are the new Titleist drivers.
The GT2 and the GT3.
I think it's even a GT4 for the low spin.
I think they look phenomenal. I really do look great. And to be honest, I really love the name.
GT.
Has there never been a driver called GT?
There must have been.
It just feels too good.
Innit? Like,
I know, but it just feels like too good a name for a driver company not to have it.
I could see you use one of them just because of the name. Have you got in the back GT?
I got GT. A GT2, 3 or 4. It's just GT, innit?
It's GT. You'd be a 2.
Thing is, when you know you've got a good driver, a bit like M1 and M2, you didn't have to say tailor-made.
No.
Did you?
Correct.
And I feel like the Titleist drivers, it potentially, if they're good, they could just, I've got a G2.
Yeah.
A GT2.
Yeah, I agree. They look awesome. They have, again, from the email we got earlier on, off Titleist, where they were saying about how Scotty Scheffler, didn't name him, had won. They also said that the GT drivers debuted at Memorial and 13 of the players made the immediate switch. Now, I never know how I feel about that, immediate switches. Is it something to brag about or not? Because you could interpret naturally as, well, it must be better. Or the more pessimistic side of me says, well, is it any different then? If you've got a tour pros playing for the bread and butter, is that a phrase?
Yeah.
For the crust, to earn the crust, pay off the mortgage, etc., etc.
These guys in the PJ paid off the mortgage.
Yeah, they've got £50 billion houses. They want golf clubs that perform. They have got tools. They don't look at golf clubs like we do typically, where they're shiny, they're new, they're exciting. They look at them as being tools for their trade, like a builder with his favourite hammer, for example. They don't want to put in a new hammer because it's shiny and new. They want it to have all the attributes. What attributes has a hammer got? Grip, potentially, I don't know, but they want the best tools for the job. So maybe these GT drivers are so amazing, it's like, I have to put it in the bag, I'm gaining distance, it's more forgiving, I want it now, give it me now. Or it's a case of, yeah, that's the same as last year's, I'll use it to please my sponsor. What do you think?
It's an interesting take. You could look at it both ways, really. I mean, the way that the brand will certainly position it is it's all singing, all dance, it's much better, it's going 27 extra yards and all this jazz. And I'm sure the players, when they stick it all over Instagram, will be saying the same. Sometimes it might be a time where, let's say they're all getting a fitting, and I think you see this even with TaylorMade, they'll be during that period of time when they've probably last had a real intense fitting with the current driver. There's probably now the swings might have changed, they might have seen a different shot pattern, they might be seeing a different ball flight, might be using a different golf ball, whatever it may be, and there's an opportunity for a fitter to have new product and go, right, let's really fine tune you in. And I bet that element of it is also key. Like, I love that time when we had that conversation with Tommy Fleetwood and he's talking about how having a sponsor is almost like having a mechanic for an F1 car.
Yeah, good analogy.
And I feel like this is their opportunity. Titleist as such, who are bringing out the GTs at the moment, is like the mechanics can really get involved and go, right, let's tweak this, let's tweak that, let's really dial that in. I'm going to stick a bit of hot glue in this, because they want that driver head to be going in the bag. So I think it's almost a time to refresh and kind of re-galvanise the energy within the driver. I think where players will put it in quickly is because maybe it probably looks the same as their previous driver. So when they set it up behind the ball, it looks very familiar and they go, well, as long as it's performing just as good, if not better, I can play with that, not a problem.
I agree, and I was kind of being tongue-in-cheek a bit there, because I think there could be some element of that sometimes where players might put stuff in the bag because it's the same and the brands force them on it. But what I would say, and trying to remain as impartial as we possibly can be, I personally believe that Titleist are one of the brands, if not the best brand for that, in the sense of letting the players play what they feel most comfortable with. It's not a secret. There's lots of guys out on tour who use older versions of Pro V1. I think Justin Thomas famously used a really old Titleist driver for a long time. I think he was like the 917 or something for a long, long time. So I know that out of all the brands, Titleist don't, yes, they care a lot about them using the latest and greatest, but they're not as bothered as long as it's still Titleist at the end of the day. So interesting to see how that performs. You're getting fitted for one next week, and obviously reviews will be coming out a few weeks after.
But when is the actual embargo? Is it in September?
I think it's a little while off, yeah. Again, what I don't quite understand actually is Titleist release their driver every 2 years, which I love. I think brands that do that's really good. It gets you excited and it makes you feel like, maybe wrongly so, but feel like there must be some difference. It's been 2 years. What they also do is they seed the product much earlier than it actually comes out to markets. They start to seed it to players on the tour now and then release it in September-ish, whatever I think you said. But I don't quite understand why, because it's not like they can change it. It's not like they're giving it to the Tour Pros now for R&D purposes and they'll then make tweaks and then release a product. The product is ready to be released as we speak. They'll have samples and product everywhere in shipping containers. But I don't quite get the purpose of that. Is it to tell the story better to the consumer, maybe?
I mean, my logical brain tells me that you want the club in their players' hands to win tournaments, to get an impact. So you've got to do that in the summer. Mm-hmm. There must be some research that Titleist believe in and go, well, actually, the best time to sell products is actually September time.
Yeah.
Which I don't feel like it is. I actually hate when brands bring out their drivers, because often for me it's either start of the year when no one's really playing golf, certainly here in the UK, or back end of the year like Titleist or Ping have normally done in the past. And I actually think, why not April? April and May should be the more time when drivers come out, in my opinion, because it's the start of the golf season. People are playing a bit more golf. Something new and shiny comes out. It's oh yeah, I've got to try that.
You're right. I think unfortunately, I think the reality is there's a lot of, like you said, business decisions to why these are. And it's why a lot of brands, and I think we can use Ping as the example, why they often bring out the drive and then like a max version a few months later, which they did this time with the G430 Max 10K. It's not that golf club wasn't ready when the other ones came out. It was because they released the first batch, get the hype, get the sales. As they maybe start to slow off a little bit, bang, here's a new one. People then either buy that one or decide to go and try the whole family and buy another version of the same driver. So I think you're right. I think it would make more sense for us as golfers, but I think that they must have businessy reasons as to why.
You know what, though? I think one thing that would genuinely change historically when brands brought out golf clubs was it was all around that PGA trade show. And a lot of the time, manufacturers brought out their drivers ready to showcase at the PGA trade show. This was before YouTube, before, people could really see images of it beforehand. I feel like if the trade show suddenly moved to April, brands would kind of start migrating towards bringing out products in April rather than January. Question
for you then, and I'm going to take your impartiality hat off. I don't mean that in a sense of, be biased or anything, because I know you want to remain impartial for the Hit channel, and that makes perfect sense. But from Rick Shiels himself, just genuinely hand on heart now, I want you to give me the two brands that you do, with driver in particular, still get most, maybe excited and almost like, okay, this is serious. X brand have brought out a new driver.
I still think TaylorMade and Callaway.
Would you say Callaway's above Titleist?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's every year it feels a bit different. Like Titleist and Ping, you kind of know what to expect, don't you? Let's be honest. And I know they've had a little bit of a shift in name changes, but Titleist are never going to bring out the
bazooka.
Are they?
No.
They're just not.
A white bazooka.
And I quite like them too, because they'd be like, oh my, Titleist brought out this, what the hell? And Ping, what are Ping going to bring out next time?
G450.
Done. Like a G. You just know already what it's going to be. Now, that doesn't mean that's not a bad strategy. I think that's a good strategy. And do I end up putting a TaylorMade or Callaway driver in the bag? Not very often, almost hardly ever. But Ping drivers, many times I put the Ping drivers in the bag because it's like, well, I know what I'm getting. And even Titleist, if you're a Titleist purist and you're like, well, actually I know what a Titleist driver does and I want to keep a Titleist driver, the next version, it's like, well, I'll just put that driver back in.
And that's something for me, I'm a bit weird because even though I don't use a Titleist driver right now, I have before, and I use Titleist irons, and I do like Titleist, but I feel like for me, if I was a consumer buying these things and I was playing a lot of golf, I'd always be the person that was more likely to go from a Titleist driver to the next model because I think, well, it's only changed slightly, but I may as well have the advantage of that slightly. Whereas I feel, bizarrely, going from a Stealth 2 to a QI10, is it actually going to be better? I feel there's more risk potentially that it could actually always be a step back.
It could
and brands
be.
have done that, haven't they?
Yeah.
Where the old M2 was so good.
Yeah.
M3 and 4 weren't better than M2 and 1.
I actually feel like though Titleist have had that journey as well.
Have.
Like 917s. Was it 915s or 917s? 917s weren't great at all.
No, I think, and then they went to these, then was it, did they have a 919 or did it go to TS? I can't remember now. I think they might have had a 919 as well. And then they had a couple of ropey years. Let's just double check. Yeah, they had a 919, no, 917. And then it went to TS. TS.
So I always remembered 917s just not to be phenomenal.
No, you're right.
And then they brought out TS as almost like look, we've kind of done with the nines now.
Yeah, we've fixed it.
And now we're in, and then they went TSR, which actually I never reviewed in the end. And now they've gone GT.
The TSI as well.
TSI,
which is the middle.
Oh, so they went TS, TSI, TSR.
Yes. So it was 2019. Was if I'm right now, let me get this right. I think 2018-19 was the TS. And then would it be 2021? I don't know, I'm confused now. But it definitely went TS, TSI,
well, that would make sense.
TSR.
Then 22-23, and then this is for 24-25 effectively.
Yeah, that's right then. But I don't know, it's just how brands do things differently. I personally do get excited to see a Titleist and a Ping because I feel like it's going to be small tweaks, but it's still worth doing. TaylorMade, I think I'm the most excited for in a sense of what's the name going to be, what's the colours going to be, what differences. It's going to have some level of difference. Different brands, different strategies.